Good evening, good evening. Welcome, everyone. I am Eric Hall, your success concierge, and welcome to this evening stream. Today is April 9th, 2025, and we are officially in the springtime in the Northern Hemisphere. So, as I say always, welcome to office hours. Hope everyone is doing well. I know some people are starting their spring break, or they're in the midst of it, or they may be doing that very, very soon. So, I want y'all to be safe and enjoy yourselves while you're out there, and enjoy the break as well too. That's what we have going on here. Your success concierge is gearing up, have my image consulting conference coming up here shortly. Something that I'm really, really looking forward to because a lot of what I do is from, I have a keen sense, a keen ability to pay attention to detail as well as be observant. So that's one of the things that I do well as a professional in this space. But also, too, I want to learn the science of it as well too, because some things come natural, and then there is also opportunities for me to learn and grow and connect with other individuals in the business as well too. So I'm very much excited about that. That's what your success concierge has coming up. But as always, we talk about our scent of the day. This is Bond number 9, New York Patchouli. This right here, this is an amazing scent. It's a very, very oody patchouli smell. It's good year round. I get compliments on this all the time. I remember I was getting on the elevator, and there was a lady who just talks a lot, and she just stopped mid sentence to give me a compliment on this fragrance. So this right here is an amazing fragrance. This is something you can definitely wear year round, indoor, outdoor, office scent as well too. Happy hour. This can also be signature scent worthy as well too. Men and women can both rock this scent. So this is a beautiful scent right here. Younger people can pull it off as well too. Jeans, t-shirt type of vibe. This is like one really, really versatile fragrance. So that is Bond number 9, New York Patchouli. And so as we get into this, y'all know what I'm about. I'm about helping individuals and businesses maximize their desired outcomes by optimizing the ABCDs of image, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Because when you don't make a good first impression, your opportunities go elsewhere, whether that's business opportunities, love opportunities, career opportunities. That's what we want to prevent. So I make it simple. Just connect with me, and we'll customize, tailor something specific to you, your needs, your goals, and your outcomes, so we can help you get your desired outcome. So that's what I do as the success concierge. And we're going to dive right into this. Let me see what's going on in the chat. I know we have some people who have chimed in. I want to definitely give you your shout outs. Shout out to you, Mr. Denise Mobley. Thank you again for tuning in as well. And we definitely have a great show for you this evening. I'll probably be the only one of the month because I will be traveling for that. But I look forward to the information and knowledge that I can bring back, because, again, it's all about learning, growing, getting better. And as we segue into that, we're going to talk about the topic at hand. I mean, here's the thing, right? The topic, we have our case study, and this individual is someone I've been wanting to do for a while, because he has a remarkable story. It just coincidental that he passed recently, but this is someone who had a rebirth or a renaissance in their life, and they did a full 360, a lot on their image, at least publicly. Some of those things were always prevalent in there behind the scenes, but that's a challenge for some individuals, because especially when you get a level of comfort, you have a level of success, then kind of regressing to go forward, that can be kind of tough. And that's not just career wise, businesses, when they can look at ways to improve procedures. Here in the United States, there's a lot of that going on in government. There's a lot of shakeup with the goal and mission to go forward in progress and be better. So a lot of times people hesitate from that just because of the challenge. They may have had success, they may have had wins, but they don't want to take a step back and do more, or they don't want to even take a step forward to do more. I give myself as a perfect example. I remember many, many years ago, I had thought in my mind I had reached the career plateau. And it was for a number of reasons, because I felt like opportunities weren't getting presented to me, maybe because of my look, my age, all these type of things. I felt like, so in my mind, which was just a story that I told myself, but then I said, okay. And so I was like, okay, I think this is my ceiling. And I kind of imposed the mental ceiling, and it did not allow me to progress. All right. Well, as I, got exposed to different things, different people, I saw possibilities, and now I see a world of endless possibilities as well too. Another perfect example is Stephen Curry, Golden State Warriors. Some consider him to be the greatest shooter of all time. But even when he was coming up, he was having some issues with his shot. So he broke his shot all the way down, right? He broke it down to improve it. And while he was in the process of breaking it down, he didn't have the amazing range that you see him do shooting from long distances, as my man Ticket TV say, pulling up from Beijing. You don't see that, but you didn't see that from him at that time. But he did that and made a 360, 180 change so he could become the person that he is today. So that's what we have going on, and we do that in our life. And so how does one evaluate what they should do in those instances? I always say, look at what your outcome is. What is it that you really, really want to achieve, and why do you want to achieve it, right? Because is it you should be doing things for your reasons, not someone else's reasons. So you have that aspect, and then what is your plan of action to do that, and then you take steps backward in order to do that. Okay, so these are some simple things that we can do to again put ourselves in these positions to achieve outcomes. And one thing that you learn is when you face these challenges, when you face these different type of things, you build a mindset, you build a muscle. So when something different or something that in the past may have been catastrophic for you, you brush it off your shoulders and you go ahead and succeed and thrive. And that's what we're going to pick up on and learn here this evening about our case study. I did put the Cash App on the board. Welcome to y'all who's tuning in. You can always send your questions in there as well as support the channel that's available to you. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. We're going to go jump into our case study. Let me see what's going on in the chat before we get started. Make sure my audio is good. Make sure my imagery is good because we know I'm smelling good already. So we're going to get prepared and be ready for that. All right, give me 1 second here. Let me get the screen sharing up. Share screen. All right. All right, let me make sure that it's going to change as well too. All right, it's working now. I don't want to have any snafus like we had before. All right, so I am Eric Hall, your success concierge, and today we're going to be talking about Born Again, our case study on George Foreman, and does these type of things help you reach a higher level? Now, as I always preface and start off, anytime I do one of these case studies, the aim and goal is to be as accurate as possible. Any information that or pictures or images that may not match up, this is not a issue or trying to just to purposely be malicious or harmful in that manner. So I am Eric Carr, your success concierge, and today we're going to be doing our case study on George Foreman, Born Again, Reaching a Higher Level. Let's get started. All right, so early life, this is, you know how I do when I get these types of things. If I can find a baby picture, I definitely do. So this is a little George Foreman before he became big George Foreman. He was born in Marshall, Texas, and then he was raised in the Fifth Ward in Houston. For those of you who are from Houston, recently Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, she's from that area as well too. But he was raised by J.D. Foreman because his mother remarried. He and his biological dad was Leroy Moorhead. So he wasn't around at that particular time, but he did take the Foreman name, and he had 6 other siblings. All right. So as a youth, he was a troubled youth. George was very big and menacing as it relates to a lot of other things. So at that time, he found himself getting into trouble. He was mugging people, being violent, bullying, because again, he was a larger stature man. But one time he was running from some people, the police that were chasing him, and he ran and hid up under a house. And it just in that mind, he decided that okay, I think I need to make a change. And so at the age of 16, he saw an ad for Job Corps, and he asked his mom to sign him up for Job Corps. And so some of the things he did while he was there, he trained in carpentry, bricklaying, engineering, and so he earned his GED because before he had dropped out of school. And so he, one of his mentors, or not mentors, people idolized growing up, is the great Jim Brown, as you see right here. Jim Brown, amazing athlete. He was someone who, well, he played professional football for the Cleveland Browns for many years. Still has the highest career rushing average for the Browns. But he was someone who engaged in football, lacrosse, all types of other sports, just an all-around athlete. So he was George Foreman's inspiration. He liked him a lot, but in the end, George Foreman decided he wanted to be a boxer instead. So this, when he went to Job Corps, he moved to Pleasanton, California, and with the help of his Job Corps supervisor, that's when he began to train not only in his profession of skills, working with his hands, but also working with his hands as a boxer. And so, as an amateur, you see here, George Foreman, he was sparring with some. This is actually Sonny Liston there in the background. He's getting his headgear on as they do. But he won his first amateur fight by first round knockout. And that's going to be a trend that you're going to see with George in that a lot of his fights, they ended early. All right. So in 1967, he won the San Francisco Examiner Gold Gloves junior division. Later on that year, he won the Gold Gloves Senior Division, Las Vegas. He won that by knockout. And then a year later, he won the San Francisco Examiner's Golden Glove Senior title, also by knockout. And then in March 1968, he won the National Boxing Heavyweight Championship title in Toledo, Ohio, over Henry Crump. Now, as I said, that is him sparring with Sonny Liston. You saw, if you didn't tune in, check out my case study on Muhammad Ali where I talked about Sonny Liston. But Foreman said Sonny Liston was one of the scariest human beings he had ever met in the ring, and he made him back up constantly. All right, and so Sonny, even when they were boxing, Sonny was using 22-ounce gloves. So some of you may not know what that means, but boxing gloves, they have a weight. The heavier the weight, the means the harder it is to wield, because you have to move your hands a little bit more, and then you're essentially you're not supposed to feel it as much because there's a little bit more padding, a little bit weight. When you see those MMA fighters, they fight with those very, very light gloves, so they're very, very quick with their hands, and you definitely feel the striking power. So normal boxers, I want to say they use either anywhere from 12 to 16. Sonny was using 22-ounce gloves fighting George Foreman, just to show you how great he was at his craft. But after that, Foreman went to the Olympics, and before he was training, he defeated Otis Evans in the second division to make the Olympic team, which is going to hold the Olympics in 1968. And so, in his amateur career prior to going to the Olympics, Foreman was 16-4. So, there was the round of 16. He defeated a Polish fighter 4-1 on points. And then from that point on, he was just deadly. In the quarterfinal, he defeated his Romanian opponent by third round stoppage. For those who don't know what that means in the boxing terms, when someone is unable to defend themselves as they should, and the referee deems it necessary because they've been taking the punishment, the referee will stop the fight. So in the semifinals, he beat the Italian by a second round knockout, and then also too in the Olympic title round, he won that in the second round by fight stoppage as well. And interesting, you see the picture here. George Foreman, he claimed that earning the Olympic gold medal was the most prized achievement in his boxing career, more than any other title. And so you see him here. He is carrying a small version of the Olympic flag. Excuse me, of the American flag. Now you may not remember what was going on in that time, but in the 1968 Olympics, this was when Smith and Carlos, the track and field athletes, they had the black glove with the black fist in the air. So this was at that same particular Olympics. So Foreman was very proud of his accomplishment, and felt very strongly about that. That's why he chose to carry the Olympic flag, and you see him there smiling with his gold medal. All right. So after that, he turned pro. He went on, and he had his first fight in 1969 against Donald Walham in New York City. He won that by knockout. So one thing that was unique about George Foreman is he fought quite frequently. In the first year, he had 13 fights, went 13-0, and won all of them by knockouts. The following year, he had 12 fights. and he won all of them, 11 of them by knockout. And then in 1971, he had seven fights and went seven and had won all seven and won all of them by knockout. So after those first 2.5, 3 years, he was a number one contender by the World Boxing Association and the World Boxing Council, better known as the WBA and WBC. And in that time, he amassed a record of 32-0 with 29 knockouts. So he finally got his title shot. And you know, I like this because Howard Cosell, he called this out. But he was going to face George Foreman January 22nd in Jamaica. You see the stare down, you see Foreman on the scale. But he actually was, he later admitted that he was actually afraid of Joe Frazier. He said, because Frazier, you would hit him and he would keep coming. He's the type of person, if you hit him, he liked it more. And if you miss, he hated it. And so at that time, Frazier was the world heavyweight champion. He had just won the title because Ali, as I said in the previous, or in one of my other videos, Ali had been stripped of his title. It was vacated because he refused induction into the armed forces draft. And so at that time, uh, uh, Frazier had fought four title defenses after having beaten Ali. Now, as I said, Foreman, despite his bigger size and reach, he was a 3-1 underdog. And so the fight took place January 22nd, 1963, in Kingston, Jamaica, and it was just dominated. Foreman knocked Frazier down 6 times in the first 2 rounds. At that time during boxing, or in this particular bout, they didn't have the 3 knockdown rule. So if you kept getting up, they're gonna keep letting you continue. And so that's where the famous phrase "Down goes Frazier" by Howard Cosell, because they were shocked that because Frazier was heavily favored. But every time he got knocked down, he was able to get to his feet. But Arthur McCanty, the referee, he felt like he had enough punishment, and he stopped the fight. And so some of the things about Joe Frazier, excuse me, George Foreman earlier on is, some people characterize him as aloof, and he rarely made himself available to the press and sneered at them. And as I said, when he was a youth, he did spar with Sonny Liston, that you see him pictured here. And Sonny Liston was not someone who smiled. Sonny Liston was an intimidating, stoic force. There's allegations that he had mob ties, but he was very stoic in his approach and his appearance, and therefore Foreman copied that, and that kind of may have put him off with some of the media at that particular time. All right, so he had some title defenses. Fought Puerto Rican Jose Roman, ranked seventh, and he won the fight in 2 minutes. And then he fought Ken Norton, who was 30-2. He was known to be a heavy puncher. He was in the Boxing Hall of Fame as well. And Norton had this cross arm defense, which Foreman would later emulate. But they fought in Caracas, Venezuela. And Norton, he got staggered in the second round and went down twice in succession. And the referee ended up stopping the fight. Now, Norton is one of the hardest punchers out there, and very great boxer. And so for him to go down that quickly, that just showed how formidable George Foreman was. Now, they call this particular bout the Caracas Caper because the government, they initially said they were going to waive the taxes on their boxing purse, right? But the day after the fight, they reneged, and it caused some financial and legal trouble for both boxers, and that's why they call that the Caracas Capper. So, Rumble in the Jungle. We've already set this up. We set up that George Foreman has been dominating. He fought Joe Frazier. He fought Ken Norton, knocked him down, knocked him out easily in the second round. And both of those gentlemen had previously beaten Muhammad Ali. Now, when Foreman was sparring and training over in Kinshasa, Zaire, for the Rumble in the Jungle, he got cut above his eye, and so they had to postpone the fight for about 6 weeks. But this prevented Foreman from training as he normally would, because he couldn't spar because they didn't want him to reopen the cut. So the fight was initially scheduled for September, but it actually took place October 30th, 1974. And one thing that stood out is Ali came out aggressive in the first round, but then from the second round on, Ali was doing his rope a dope. He was moving, doing those, doing his evasive tactics, as you see here in the above picture. And Foreman had not fought past the first round, fought past the fourth round since 1971. And so Ali was taking a lot of punishment. Foreman wore down. His punches were losing their fuel, and Foreman ended up getting knocked down, as you see here. And he could not rise for the belt after that time. And this was a big upset as well. So after that, Foreman stated, it just wasn't his night. Yeah, even may have even said that okay, he was drugged by his trainer prior. I looked that up, didn't find anything to substantiate that, but it's still possible. But he wanted to have a rematch with Ali because one thing he had a lot of anger just in life and in general hatred. Well, not I wouldn't say hatred. That's kind of a strong word. But he had a lot of anger toward Ali and others as well too about that because he said it just wasn't his night, and he took a year off from boxing. But he would return in 1976. Had the fight of the year, fought another heavy puncher, Ron Lau, because he wanted to come back and get a rematch with Ali. And so it was definitely considered the fight of the year because it was a slugfest going back and forth. Second round, Lau staggered Foreman, and then sending Foreman to the canvas and Foreman would come back and KO Lau a little bit later. They weren't. It was almost like a Rocky movie, which they weren't defense. They were just swinging and slugging. They were going at it, but that was billed as the fight of the year. So after that, he went on to fight Frazier again. Frazier was ranked third in the world at this point. He was 32-3. He had lost to Ali in the Thriller in Manila a year earlier, and he took a lot of punishment in that fight. But the fight started off very competitive. Frazier was able to bob and weave and move and avoid some of the hits from Foreman, but allegedly he was wearing a contact. He lost, and he was unable to be as aggressive as he liked. Foreman knocked Frazier down twice in the fifth round, and they eventually stopped that fight. So here's a major turning point as well too in the life and career of George Foreman. So in 1977, he fought Pedro Augusto and won by fourth round knockout, and he was scheduled to fight Jimmy Young in Puerto Rico. And so Young was a skilled boxer who also had beaten Ron Lau, who Foreman beat, but he lost a controversial decision to Muhammad Ali. Now, Foreman didn't give himself an opportunity to acclimate because he arrived in Puerto Rico a day before the fight. But he was cautious early on. Even he was given a warning for pushing. But Young was, holding and doing other things. So he was not penalized for that. But in the seventh round, Foreman hurt Young, but he was not able to finish him. And one of the Foreman's challenges was his fatigue. So he was not able to continue to maintain his endurance. And so he got knocked down in the 12th round, and he would go on to lose that fight by unanimous decision. So he lost 118, 111, 116, 112, 115, 114 on all the scorecards. Now, what's interesting is the aftermath of this. When Foreman went back to the dressing room, he came very, very ill. He was suffering from exhaustion, heat stroke, and he constantly states he had a near-death experience. He said he felt like he was in the midst of death. And Foreman, who at this point in his life had never been religious, wasn't raised religious, he said, "I don't care if this is death. I still believe there is a God." And so at that point, Foreman became a born-again Christian. He didn't officially announce it, but he stopped fighting, and he became an ordained minister, as you see here holding the Bible. And then he was on different TV shows like the 700 Club, TBN, and he became minister of the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ, and he opened the George Foreman Youth Center, as you see there. But some interesting things that I discovered as well too. Foreman, when he started making money boxing, he said he put away 25% of his earnings because he wanted to set himself up for long-term success when he was no longer able to be in the ring. But he made some investments in cattle and oil wells and such and so forth. And one thing he said was during that time, economics changed. So I want to say he said he lost about $5 million. He was on the verge of being homeless. And so he decided he wanted to return to boxing because his primary motive was to raise money to fund his youth center, as well as he wanted to fight Mike Tyson. All right. So George Foreman made a comeback. You see him when he was young versus when he was old. He was badly out of shape. He was 267 pounds. And one thing, and he still was able to secure a fourth round knockout because Foreman still had the punching power that he had always had. But one of the things he wanted to do as he continued to fight, he was slimming down, and he wanted to prove that being 40 years old was not a death sentence. You could still perform at a high level, which we have seen recently with athletes such as Tom Brady as well as LeBron James. But he also changed his personality as well too. So he went from aloof and intimidating to someone being friendly and cheerful. So you see him with Muhammad Ali smiling. They became friends, and they formed a solid relationship and were friends for the rest of life. But also too, Foreman began endorsing products. So you see him here. This is a Meineke commercial. He did, I want to say, Pepsi, some other brands as well too, and of course his famous grill, which we will definitely talk about a little bit later. And so he wanted to get back into title contention. He started making significant money as well too. He fought Evander Holyfield, losing by 12 rounds by unanimous decision. That's him down below with the current President Trump. And so he lost that particular fight, but Holyfield said he was still one of the hardest hitters that he had. August 11, 1992, he fought Alex Stewart. He was fatigued late. He won by majority decision, but his face was bloody. And you see right here, has Foreman bitten off more than he can chew. And then he fought Tommy Morrison for the vacant WBO, and he lost by unanimous decision. So these three fights, even though he won one of the two, many were saying, yeah, I don't know if he should still continue to go on. All right. But he had an opportunity to have another shot at the title. So Holyfield had lost his title to Michael Moore, and Michael Moore and Foreman saw the opportunity to fight him. So after Foreman had lost to Morrison, he was unranked. But because of Foreman's high profile, his legend, they thought it was going to be a very lucrative, low risk opportunity. So for those who are investors, we always look at asymmetrical risk, low risk, high reward, and that's what Moore perceived this to be. So this fight took place on November 5th, 1994. Now, remember, he lost the title to Ali on October 30th, 1974. So it's give or take 20 years later from that time. And Foreman, as you see here, he's wearing the same red trunks that he wore when he had fought Ali 20 years earlier. So for the first 9 rounds, Moore, who was 19 years younger than Foreman, he dominated on the scorecards. He dominated the fight. He was lead one judge had him 88-83, another had him 88-85. But in the 10th round, Foreman started landing shots. Moore was knocked down. He was out for the count. So Foreman was champion again, as you see here, by George. And at that time, Foreman became the oldest fighter to win a world title, had the longest interval between championships, and the oldest winner of a major title fight. So Foreman continued to box with the hopes of wanting to go fight Mike Tyson. And he said if Tyson didn't sign with Don King, he would the fight would happen by the end of the year. Tyson signed with Don King, but he never so the fight never materialized. And so Foreman fought three more fights, after winning the title. But not November 22nd, 1997, he had a controversial fight with Shannon Briggs. And it was controversial because Foreman was more efficient. He landed more punches, had a higher percentage than Briggs. And Harold Landerman had Foreman winning the fight 116-112. But on the official scorecard, it was 114-114, 116-112, and 117-113 in favor of Briggs, giving him the lineal heavyweight title. Now, I was doing some research on this, and Foreman, he lost the fight, and it would turn out that would be the last fight of his career. But he had gotten $1 million check for his for the grill, so bittersweet, right? So right after the fight, the promoters wanted to protest. It didn't go through because they wanted Foreman to be able to fight Lennox Lewis for the WBC title. Briggs would go on to lose to Lennox Lewis, and even in 1998, a few years later, Foreman was going to come out of retirement to face Larry Holmes, but the promoter could not pay the remaining $9 million on the $10 million purse, so it never materialized. But during his time from 1987 to 1997, Foreman went 31-3, 26 knockouts, and in that time, none of the 34 fighters were able to knock Foreman down. So Foreman finished his boxing career at 70-65 with an impressive 68 knockouts. And after that, he worked with HBO as an analyst. He flirted with coming back, starting to train in February 2004. It never materialized because, again, he wanted to say that 50 is the new 40, give or take, meaning that you could still perform and box, such and so forth, at a high level. I don't know if that's what's inspired individuals like Roy Jones and Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield to continue to box at this advanced age. But Foreman, once he left boxing, HBO, he left boxing altogether, has not been affiliated with that since, and wanted to pursue other opportunities. But as you see right here, one of those opportunities was his religious career. He never grew up religious early in his life, and he wanted to survive after he had that fight with Jimmy Young. As I said, he was having dehydration, heat, all type of things going on with his body. He said it was near death, and he's very adamant about this particular story. He was bargaining and saying to vote his boxing prize money to charity, hearing the voice say, "I don't want your money, I want you." And so that was some of the things that helped Foreman turn over his life. He led church service 3 times a week, sometimes even starting out preaching on the line. We already talked about his youth center. And one of the things he said is, it doesn't matter what you achieve, what you accomplish in life. The most important thing is to keep your eye on the true prize, and that's serving God. And that's how he kind of lived his life. So you see here, that's him as the Venus flytrap on The Masked Singer. I might have to go back and check that out. He did have a movie called Big George Foreman, which in my travels I've watched on the plane. And it's based on his sporting and spiritual life, so you definitely want to check that out. But George Foreman was a bit of a ladies' man. He was married 4 times or 5 times, excuse me. You see the different times: Adrian Calhoun for 3 years, Cynthia Lewis 2 years, Sharon Goodson for a year, Andrea Skeet for 3 years, all from 1971 to 1985. But in 1985, he married Mary Joan Martelli, and they remained married until his passing just a few short weeks ago. And she was helping him with his, manage his estate and his career. But you see there, he had a lot of children. He had 12 children, 5 sons, 7 daughters. He named all his sons George Edward Foreman. He said they will always have something in common. If we go up, we all go up. If one goes down, we all go down. He had a daughter like George the second pursued boxing. George the first played. George the fourth placed on the seventh on the American TV show American Grit. His daughter Frida, she had pursued boxing. She was 5-1, but unfortunately in 2019, at the age of 42, she self-deleted. We know what that means because we have to keep it clean for YouTube. And then he had a daughter who's a blogger. He received the James V. Day Good Guy Award for the American Legion during the 2013 convention, which was the 95th convention. So as I stated, he passed away just a few weeks ago, March 21st, 2025, in Houston, Texas. He was 76 years old, which is interesting because that's how many fights that he won, had victorious. And you see him here with Mike Tyson, whom they wanted to get together, and that's his legacy as well too. So what do we know him for? We know him about the Foreman Grill. Um, uh, when he came out, he was approached with this because he said his success was because of healthy eating. And the founder of Sultan Inc. Approached him. He questioned what did it work like they said it worked, and that wasn't just unique to George. Other celebrities and people who had turned it down as well too. There was rumors that people like Arnold Schwarzenegger had turned it down, and some other celebrities, and then there's some people who tried to copy it as well. But his wife liked the product, and she convinced George to take part in that, and so he did. And as they say, the rest was history. He got 40% off the profits, peaking at 4.5 million in a year. and he made over $200 million from that grill. And then in 1998, he sold the rights to use his name for $128 million, and he sold over 1 million units. He was even on TV a little bit. You see him there, Sanford and Son, Home Improvement. He had a short-lived TV series called George, and then of course The Masked Singer. But let's get so that's just basics on the life of George. But let's talk about the appearance aspect of it. You see, this is how he carried himself. He occasionally smiled, but this is how he was most of the time in public. Very stoic, very hard on in how he carried himself. But then as he progressed, you see he smiled more. He softened his face up, softened his appearance up, and made him more approachable. Here it looks like someone you might, avoid going down the street because you don't know what they're going to do to you. But here he looks like someone you want to have a conversation with and enjoy their company. And so behavior changed over time. This is him staring down Joe Frazier. He went from a life of crime to boxing to helping others, as you see here, a turn of events, him smiling along with Joe Frazier as well as Muhammad Ali. And even from a digital footprint and communication standpoint, he was standoffish and aloof, but he also went on to be friendly and engaging. And one of the things he said that he wanted to do was master sales and communication so he could be able to communicate effectively as well as sell more products because he was a pitch man of pitchmen as you saw there. So I am Eric Hall, your success concierge. Like, comment, share, subscribe. That includes our case study on George Foreman. Thank you again. All right. That was a lot there. Let's go and see what we have going on here in the chat. I really enjoyed the research that I did for that. I see the Lioness of Videography. Welcome again. We definitely appreciate you being here. Yeah, let's see. That was a good one there. So, one of the key lessons that we learned from dealing with George and just that instance there is taking steps to change, reinvent yourself, but doing not being, as we say, full gazy. This was genuine. And maybe that shaking up is what it took for George Foreman to decide to change his life, turn around his life. And he was able to overcome adversities after that. So the loss to Ali was very, very heartbreaking for him. The loss to Jimmy Young, where he, lost the fight, but then he was having the health conditions. All these type of things help build his skill up, build his mind up for things to come. So when he was almost going bankrupt because of bad investments, he was able to get back in the saddle, box, perform at a high level. When he was out of shape, he was able to get back and do what was necessary so he could perform at a high level. So all these things led to strengthening the muscle, being born again, and ultimately it took him to higher levels because on the day he lost his last fight, he received a check for $1 million. Now that was a lot of money back then, still a lot of money today. But when you see athletes, some of the deals and money that they're making, it is night and day. So that's what I got on Big George Foreman. But as always, we're going to go ahead and take some time to answer your questions. Let's see what we got going on over here in the chat. All right, let's see. See what questions do we have. All right. Y'all funny right here, but I'll answer it. What do you think about Vivica Fox and her BBL? Well, again, I don't know if I answered this last week or not, but I'll answer it again. It's interesting. I always look at, my rules still apply. Where you're going to wear it to, what's the mess you want to send, and the cost value. So Vivica, I think she's over 60. She's putting her life and health in jeopardy for an aesthetic that appeals to a small group of individuals. And with those individuals, would she appeal to them? I'm not sure, but they claim they do that for themselves. So if that's the case, then kudos to her. But that's not something I would recommend with clients in general, as well as someone at an advanced age going under the knife when it may not be necessary. All right, good question. I think I answered it last week, but again, I will take that. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right. Do you think George Foreman would have had the success without the image change? No. And here's the thing, right? George Foreman, when you have a professional athlete who achieves that level of dominance, being the heavyweight champion of the world and fighting some of the all-time greats, yes, they do have a lot of talent. Well, one thing is some of the lessons learned made George Foreman more likable and more personable as he progressed, right? So remember, he got the fight with Michael Moore not because he would, even though he was unranked, but because of his status, his nature, and what people were looking and seeing. And he's someone who overcame odds. So that's why I think that very much helped him. And then he got the endorsements like the Meineke, I want to say Pepsi, and then of course his grills. And I want to talk about another all-time great, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So before LeBron James recently broke the NBA scoring record, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had the scoring record. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar also has a record for six league MVPs. So he's a legend. Now, some of the things that the knock on him was some of his personality traits. Now, he did do movies here and there, but he never really secured a head coaching position, despite him trying to be an assistant for a number of years. And then some of the recognition that he uh, missed out on as well too. So he didn't have that life of success afterwards. And I even remember I was looking at something, and this person was going to do an event, and they had a choice between Dr. J and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They just felt Dr. J was more personable, so they chose him over Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And so, as I said, never get a second chance to make a first impression. And what that means is a lot of times individuals see, judge, or meet someone, and they spend more time trying to confirm their biases versus making a change for the better. So that's why these type of things are very, very much important. And from my perspective, George Foreman would not have had that level of success had he not made the change. And again, you look at his life, that health scare, and part of the change in his image was him finding religion. So that made a huge difference in how he chose to live his life going forward, and that helped his longevity, his health, and a lot of other things as well too. So that is a very, very good question. Here y'all go with these political questions, but I'll answer it. All right. What are your thoughts on the revelations in the book about the Biden Harris campaign? Well, two things, right? So there are some from the camp who was observant, and they saw some of the things go on as far as his health, as far as how different people felt about her as a candidate. I mean, even going back to 2020, she didn't get a lot of votes in the primary, didn't get any actually, and dropped out quickly. But many people saw his health deteriorating over publicly. Now, that's one thing, right? The other thing is some people felt lied to because in the public face, they're saying this, they're doing this, they're believing that, they're raising money, they're doing all these things. But behind the scenes, they're not, as we say, in congruence with how they're living and how they're believing. And so that's yet to be seen. The people who support them and support that side, they're probably going to be like, oh, okay, well, I felt lied to. What's next? Whereas people who are on the other side, the other camp, they're like, okay, we already knew. So it's really going to be about what side that you're on. But if you felt like you were lied to, which you were, that's going to affect how you believe the credibility of those individuals involved going forward. So that's for you to decide what's in your best interest and how you move politically going forward. All right. Y'all be trying to get me with these political questions. Let's see here. Let's see what we got. Oh. All right. What are your thoughts on men wearing sandals? Okay. Shout out to Osei Duke Jackson talking weaving and sandaling up. I'm not a fan of men wearing sandals, especially here in American culture. I know certain foreign cultures that is acceptable, but not so much here. As I would say, a lot of gentlemen don't take care of their feet like they should, and the style can be challenging, and sometimes it looks out of place. So for me, sandals are for the pool and the beach. That's my perspective. Can I style them? Yeah, it depends on what you're doing, where you're going. But yeah, definitely not really a fan of men wearing sandals, and definitely not sandals and socks. Now I know some of you ball players, y'all like to wear the slides. You wear them in between time going to and from the gym. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I did that as well too, because that's what we like to do. We like to be comfortable in our socks and sandals. But just overall, from a style perspective, not really a fan of that at all. All right. Oh yeah, let me put this up here because I know sometimes y'all want to come up here and chat. I know sometimes I have trolls. I know y'all out there watching, talking trash, doing what you do. But you can come on, bring your hips in here, and we'll handle that. Okay, the line is said I'm pro men wearing sandals without socks. Well, we know what you have an affinity for. Uh, so I see why you would want anything that exposes the lower extremity of the feet. So I definitely understand that, and you would be fine with them without sandals, with loafers, all those things, because we know that is something that you like and enjoy. All right, let's see what else we got going on here in the chat here. Um, let's see. Okay, this is a good one right here. What are some good fabrics for springtime? Okay, so from a fabric standpoint, we got a couple of things. We got color as well as material. Springtime, and also too, it really depends on your skin tone. Like, are you a warm person, cool person? All these type of things. But typically, people in spring they're a little bit more lively, so you can wear some of your pastels, your brighter colors, even your earth tones. So spring allows you a lot of versatility on that. And with that being said, from a fabric standpoint, you can do your linen. Same within the summertime. I know someone's gonna ask me, so I ask it again. Same within the summertime. Your linen, but also your blend. So your linen and wool, right? Like a good blend on that because linen wrinkles easily, but the wool is going to make it have a little bit of stability, so it doesn't wrinkle. Pima cotton is very good. Bamboo, I like bamboo. This is no, this is not. I think this is bamboo on this jacket, but it's a very hypoallergenic and breathable fabric, which you're going to want for those warmer times as well too. And if you sweat, it's going to help you keep that odor down. And then blends is with silk as well too, because silk, like linen, it wrinkles very quickly, very easily. It doesn't. Silk is not very durable as well too. So you want to make sure you blend that with another fabric so you can in fact get the most out of that. So definitely a good question there. I like those fashion and image questions there. Y'all want some controversy? I'm gonna give it to you. All right, what are your thoughts on the Anthony Edwards saga? So, for those who not basketball fans, I know we have people from all over the world here tuning in, and I know I have people of all ages, whether they like sports or not, they tune in as well too. So, Anthony Edwards, basketball player, I believe he's 23, 24 years old, very young man, highly successful, playing at a high level in the National Basketball Association. He recently had a paternity case against a young lady. She wanted custody. She wanted child support. He stated he didn't want to have children. So as a result, they went to court. He said, "Okay, I'm gonna pay a lump sum," and then there's some back and forth about that and whether he should be involved in the child's life. So Edwards is a young man. I know. I think he has a couple other children, maybe a couple other mothers as well too. But for the most part, from what I see, it's mainly people who look like him, blacks, minorities, talking about it. You don't really see that affecting some of his endorsement deals or some of his other things. So it hasn't really affected him in that particular manner. If it does, and it possibly could, that's something to look out for. Also, too, in the future, because having babies, paying child support, that affects your pocket. So that could be something to look out for as well too. But one thing I will note is he has been very much silent on a lot of things as it relates to that. He's letting um, the media handle that and let that play out in the public square while he is remained relatively silent. I know Aisha Howard, she's been vocal about certain things, but that is that right here. Let's see here. We got another question in the chat. Let me put it up here. How can women add a variety of sundresses for the summer? So, Blindness, I know you're here, so maybe there's some clarifying that you can do. But some sundresses have a lot of style. it really depends on, what, because again, we talk about frame, right? So sundresses can be straps, right, where you can show off your shoulders, collarbones, and arms, and then some can be full coverage on the sleeves as well too. And it depends on the climate that you have. Because some sundresses, they're supposed to be kind of fun, kind of enjoyable, kind of pleasurable as well too. Let's see, did I freeze up? I froze up over there, but I don't know if I'm frozen here. But yeah, so I'll could keep talking. Maybe it'll. Uh, yeah, this froze up. Hold on. Test, test. All right, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I just had a freeze connection. So the question was, how can I add a variety of sundresses for the summer? Um, that depends on a number of factors because sundresses have very different styles. You could have the ones that have, as they call the straps, where it shows your shoulders, collarbones, and arms, or you can have full coverage where it comes to about right here and provides that cover. Uh, just some clarity on that. And then the follow up question is, I don't want to buy the same thing. I like to mix it up. So for you, I see your skin tone a little bit from your avatar and your profile picture. So for you, explore with different patterns. Colors that look good on you would be grays, blues, even some light pinks, oranges. You're more of a warm color type of skin tone, so you can do those type of things from that particular standpoint. And then you can look at various patterns and links for the sundresses. So yeah, that's why you have a success concierge to help pick those type of things out as well too. But that's how you get a little bit of variety. A lot of people, man, they just do black, they just do gray, and solid is good on certain occasions, but sundresses, you're typically outside. You typically want to send the messaging that you're fun. That's what I'm guessing. And so you want to add some patterns to it. Add some polka dots. That can be fun. Add some different squiggly flares or flowers. All those type of things will be helpful as well too. That's how you add a little bit of variety. But if you find yourself and you're looking in your closet and you see the same color, the same thing with no variety, then that's a sign that you should change. And then again, the same three questions apply when you're going out. Question one, where you're going to wear it to. Two, what's the message you want to send? And then three, what's the value add or cost per wear? So all those things you want to take into consideration when you do those type of things. So definitely a great question for that. And that, I mean, that sundresses. Some people, they're going to be wearing shorts and t-shirts and all these type of things, and you can play with it based on your shape, your tone, as well as your body type and your lifestyle that you're going to be doing. All right, let's see what else we got going on over here. Let's see. It's the sound question. I already answered that. Okay. How should I dress prepare for spring break? Okay. It's a number of things. One, you got to decide where you're going to go to because I know some people go to cooler climates or warmer climates. So yeah, you definitely have to prepare based on where you're going. Make sure you have your protection. That's protection from the elements, whether it be warm elements, cool elements, and then protection in case you're going to be engaging in some fun behavior. That type of protection as well. So you definitely want to have that. And then, of course, as we always say, what's the message you want to send while you're out there? You may be going to interact with others. You may just say, you know what, I want to chill, relax, all these type of things. But then you focus on your outcome and then your cost per wear, because if you're potentially going somewhere cooler and you're going skiing, you might buy a few things but rent others. But you take all those type of things in consideration, and of course, be safe while you are out there. All right, let's see what else we got here. Let me see here if we got any more questions. All right, I'll answer this one. since y'all like these type of things. All right, as an image consultant, what are your thoughts on the tariff wars? This is very interesting right here, and it really depends on perspective, right? There's a lot of things going back and forth about tariffs and prices and all that other stuff. It's a lot of noise on that, but I'm going to go from two perspectives that I know of. I'm going to go from the U.S. perspective, and I'm going to go from the China perspective. Well, I'll do three: U.S. perspective, China perspective, and then a smaller nation perspective. All right. So we'll start with the U.S. perspective. U.S. perspective, from that particular perspective, the United States is probably, I think they have the highest GDP. China may be second, but they're a net consumer, meaning they're the ones who are constantly buying products. So think about this for a second. You go to a event, a pop up, a store. Who's most important? Is the person selling the product or the person buying it? Because the person who's buying it and they're not satisfied, they're not going to purchase anything. So you need those individuals. And that's the position that the United States is in at this present time. And so, from the US perspective, they are spending a lot of money with other countries, right? Like I'm spending money with you, you're not spending money with me. And they have a deficit, meaning they're spending more with you than you're spending with us. And so they say, okay, let's see how we can do to balance that out. So that's why they are imposing tariffs. And then for those who know their history, before 1913, the U.S. government was funded by tariffs. All right. Now let's talk about the Chinese perspective. China makes a lot of goods. China, Japan, countries like that, and there's this economic term called dumping, right? Where you flood other markets with products and things that you don't. Well, not say you don't want, but you flood the market with cheap products to other places, and you undercut other places so you can make a profit. China has had a lot of protectionist policies. Your success concierge. I do have a master's degree in international business and finance. That's why I'm qualified to speak on these things. But China has had protectionist policies where they don't let a lot of people into their business wise, but they send and sell and make a lot of products. And another thing from the U.S. standpoint that COVID taught them was, if you have all these things manufactured overseas, well, there's a pandemic or something that comes up, then you won't be able to have access for that. So that's right there. So they're working to balance their trade off. Then for smaller nations, they want to protect their industry, but they also want to be able to trade with the U.S. They may not have enough revenue to be a net consumer of a lot of U.S. products, but they may have some other resources that um, those they have. So, as I said, from each one of those three perspectives, they're gonna want different outcomes. Now, from the U.S. perspective, because they're the buyer, they're in a pretty good situation, right? Despite what a lot of individuals say, tariffs are all over the place, all over the world. If you've ever traveled or bought some, and you say, "Oh, this is the tax on top of that," that is a form of tariff. All right, so they're in a good position. China, they in a good position now, but that's changing because they don't really have the cars because the other countries they're not going to be large consumers like the U.S. And some of those things where they're negotiating and doing these things can make it tough on them. So uh, to me, there's a lot going on, different perspectives, different people want different things, but the key is you want to get these individuals to the negotiating table so they can in fact have the conversation about that and then come to a solution. All right. All good questions, as y'all always do. Let's see what we got going on in the chat here. We don't have nothing else. So I appreciate y'all preparing for the upcoming events. Thank you again for tuning out. RIP to Big George Foreman. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I know we had a couple of people pass as well recently. I think I don't know if that's a sign of time, but heroes age, people age, and that's just a part of life. But thank y'all again for tuning in. Salute, and we are out. Good night, everyone.